points from the feedback given, and I showed my thinking a bit more. So in one of my earlier videos, I talked about doing beach cleans as a student in secondary school and remembering the main materials that washed up on the beaches, and those are fairly easy to gather up once you get a group of people together. So I looked at driftwood, which I've already looked at in the previous slides, glass, which can be quite common, especially near local villages and pubs and stuff. I guess plastics everywhere, and then drinking cans again. I suppose regional. But I knew all these, so I kind of want to look into more specific areas. So I searched what is the most common waste on the world's beaches, and number one, with over almost a million more, was cigarette butts, and this is where the idea of gathering cigarette butts was. Um, so to date, gathered there's estimated over 2,117,000. So that's almost a million more than any other plastic waste gathered. So these are the small things that are often skipped over, and this is why as it is a major problem. So I think it is a small thing that gets looked over, but still is a huge issue. I think it's why I chose the topic. Um, Moving on from that, I looked at what can be done with cigarettes. I found a company based from America, TerraCycle, and they actually take all the bits separately of the cigarettes, packaging, wrappers, the whole lot, and they can do several different things with it. So like the ash and the actual tobacco can be used as compost. The filters and the rolling paper and stuff are broken down and recycled into pallets, as you see down the bottom. So there's a huge amount that they can actually do with it. They say not to send them the cardboard casing because that can be just recycled locally, but these they will actually specifically break down each of the parts and recycle them, or turn them into compost or something beneficial. So from that I started looking at current cigarette bins and boxes. So the one on the left there is common to you'd find it outside the pubs and anywhere like that, and then the one on the right there is kind of a bit more modern, a bit more sophisticated. So I started looking at actual designs and what I'd kind of like to come up with, and then I've found a nice piece of material at home. The two images in the middle there, the one on the left there is just raw material that or driftwood range of different stuff that some of it can be traced roughly enough, and others you can see just branches. So I decided to go with this big piece where it's for sure it definitely came from a boat. You can see circled down in the image down below here. It's most definitely part of the hull. This has been cut to size. We've used other parts of it for our in the kitchen at home for steps and around the extractor fan. So it's been cut to size. So it was much bigger. It was roughly it was over 2 meters long, and it was almost 3. So it would definitely be a structural part of the hull of a boat, keeping the curves from collapsing on itself. So from its original thickness to what it is now, it's half the size, even a third of the size it was. But I feel it can be definitely used. You can see in the middle there, there's a lot of good material that can be used, and it has a nice silvering weathered effect on the outside, which I think would be good to use around on the beaches and I guess in the coastline to blend in a bit more. And here's some quick rough ideas. This one here is probably the one I'm aiming to go for. Some steam bent brackets, maybe some biscuit joints, a lock grid space for the cigarettes to go in, but make sure that they're not too big so that it doesn't get used as a bin. I may have to adjust this. Looking at it, the rain might fall into the top there, so having the grid and cigarette holes there on the front might be better and more sheltered.